Is it important for us to know about the life cycle? Does it plays a major role in our everyday life to know the life cycle? Yes, it helps us to understand the changes we experience and the reasons we go through those changes. So it will be quite more interesting to understand the thing what we have been undergoing. So if we have a changes in us, if we see a changes in a living being or living organism, so if we know the reason of it, so it will be quite interesting for us to go through those changes. Next is factors which affect the life cycle: temperature, change in nature, and human activity. As we all know, the temperature, if it is too high or it's too low, it's gonna affect any of the living organisms. So for sure, it is going to affect the life cycle of a particular living organisms too. And the change in nature, for example, it might be a much sun exposure or a wind exposure, or maybe overabundance of water, or also a lack of water. So everything is nothing but it's a change in the nature. This is also highly is going to affect the life cycle of any of the living organisms. Finally, is the human activity. We see so many of the human activities has been taking place, which is changing up the whole world now upside down because of the deforestation, because of so many things. The life cycles of different organisms has been affected, and it highly affects the life cycle of every being. The fun and most interesting part we are going to see, we're going to discuss some of the life cycles of some living beings. First of all, the human beings. Next, we can deal with birds, animals, and some insects. Okay, so let's move on with the life cycle of a human. Yep, we all know that its fertilized egg creates a fetus inside our mother's womb. So a fetus is formed in the womb, and when the baby comes out, we call it as a baby. The fetus comes out, we say it a baby. And the baby is growing up to a child and to an adolescent, or we can say a teenager stage, and then to an adult, to an older age, finally to death. So we all know that human babies are all born after 9 months. So think about all growing and changing human children do as they grow up. Children grow in height and get heavier until they reach adulthood. Children also changes as their body matures. So the human life cycle is nothing but what we say is that it's a change in the height, in their weight, and in their body changes also. So next is we are going to see about the plant's life cycle. First, it's from seed, it becomes a seedling and a small plant, a small tree to a growing tree and a very mature tree with fruits and seeds in it. So as we see with the plants, it starts as a seeds. When a seed starts to grow, we call that as germination. And when a plant is mature, it produces flowers. Flowers are fertilized sometimes by animals like honeybees or sometimes by wind. So after flower is fertilized, most plants make seeds in the form of fruit. So the seed inside the fruit can be planted and can be grown into a new plant, and the cycle starts over and over again. So the reproduction of the flowering plants is mostly deals with the pollination, fertilization, then after that it becomes seed dispersal, and then comes a germination, and our tree has been growing up, and the cycle keeps on repeating over and over again. Next, we can see a life cycle of an animal. So, animal begin life either from an egg or as a baby that is born ready for life. Baby animals grow and change into adolescents, and eventually it becomes adults. Adult animals look for a mate to begin the life cycle all over again with the new babies. And each type of animal has their own unique life cycle. Now, as we see here, it's a life cycle of a horse. The baby horse is called foals, and they are born after 11 months of their pregnancy. When humans were born, we depend on adults to carry because we were not able, we could not walk. From the starting, we were leaning and we were depending upon an adult. But when we talk about the animals, especially this foals we are discussing here, it has a fascinating ability to stand about 1 hour after its birth. And it can even start walking and running very soon after its birth. So, what an amazing creation, is it? Well, yes. So, can we imagine being close to a full adult size or as big as our parents at just 1 year old? Well, horses, they are very unique. They are very fast in their growth. By the time of 1 year old, the foal is already over 80% of the size of an adult horse. We could not imagine ourselves being a 1 year old kid as big as tall as heavy as our moms and dads. It's really funny to think like that, but these horses, they do. They are very fast in their growth. Quite interesting here, is it? Yeah. Next, we can move on to some other uh, life cycle of a bird. So here when some babies are born, or it hatches from egg, and they look like their parents, like kitten and horses. But some other animals or birds, they look much different from their parents, like the tadpoles, which turn into frogs. We all know about the tadpoles. When it hatched from its egg, it was totally different to look at it, and its final stage was totally different. But some are very realistic. They resembles more their parents, just as we see in the horses. And here we are seeing one more life cycle of a chicken. So there is an egg, embryo is developing inside an egg, and when it hatches, a small cutie chick is coming out, which later grows to an adult chicken for us to have a nice dinner or lunch. Yeah, yeah. Okay, but some animals that change dramatically during their life cycle, which they go through, and these were called as metamorphosis. We are very familiar with the life cycle of one of the metamorphoses, that is nothing but a butterfly. So this has a dramatic change in their life cycle. A mother butterfly lays eggs that hatch into baby caterpillars, and as the caterpillars eats, it grows bigger and bigger, and eventually it is ready to transform into a butterfly. The changes takes place inside a chrysalis, where the caterpillar's body changes into a butterfly. And finally, when the butterfly comes out of the chrysalis, it is ready to find a mate and lay eggs. Then the cycle starts all over again and again. So, as we have seen, the life cycle of a butterfly is one among the example for metamorphosis. It's a drastic, dramatical, a wonderful change in their life cycle. We see a wiggly worm, but changing into an unimaginable, beautiful butterfly at the end of its life stage. So, as we have seen today, we have discussed about the life cycles of a living beings, especially our own life cycle, and we have also seen the life cycles of plants and some animals, some mammals, and metamorphosis too. So it was quite interesting to learn about the things or the changes which is happening with us and the happening which is happening around us. Yes, that's why I say that life cycle is very important because it helps us to understand the changes we experience and it's the reason what is the reason we are going through those changes. So learning science is fun and learning life cycle is also giving us more information and also explains us the beautiful, interesting, fun part of our everyday life and the life of the things which is surrounding us. I hope you enjoy this uh, teaching of life cycle in science and also teaching of vocabulary from English. I hope you got a good time in listening to this teaching, and I hope you got some informative things for you to follow also. Thank you so much for this wonderful time. Thank you.